Hello, and welcome to today's webinar on the industrial workforce, brought to you by Plant Services and AVO Training Institute. I'm Thomas Wilk, Chief Editor of Plant Services, and would like to express my appreciation to you for joining us today. This webcast is also sponsored by AVO Training Institute. For over 50 years, AVO has helped hundreds of thousands of people in over 100 different countries around the world to create safe and reliable electrical systems. AVO specializes in fast, effective hands-on electrical skills training with recognized course instruction in areas including electrical maintenance, testing, power studies, and safety skills. So before I begin today's presentation, there are a few housekeeping issues I'd like to review with you. On your screen, you should have several primary sections. The upper left or audio control section allows you to adjust the volume of the presentation. Just hover your cursor over the speaker symbol and adjust the volume to your preference. At the right, in the largest section, is where today's presentation slides will be displayed. And under that slide window, you'll see a public chat section where you can chat live with fellow attendees. To the left of the slide window is the questions and answers box where you can type a question for me anytime during today's webinar. I'll get to a few of those questions during a live Q&A session following the main presentation. Also, the handout section at bottom left contains links to the full set of speaker slides from today, as well as the full set of data from the 2018 Plant Services Workforce Survey and a PDF of our June 2018 cover story on the survey. Finally, at the bottom of your screen, you should see icons for additional features. By hovering over each of these icons, information about the icon will be displayed. If you're having technical problems, you can type in your question or concern in the questions and answers box, and one of our technical engineers will assist you. If you need a better view, enlarge any section by clicking on the box in the top right corner of the section next to the X. If you accidentally close out a section, you can get it back by clicking the Restore button at the bottom of the screen. The C icon at the left in the shape of a double arrow in a circle. Also, a quick note that today's presentation will feature a lot of tabled data, so you may want to enlarge that slide section if the slides become too small to read for every data point. This webinar will be archived, and we encourage you to direct coworkers to the recorded presentation. At the end of the presentation, we'll ask you to complete a very brief survey to give us some feedback that can help us improve these webinars. So with that, we'll start the main presentation. Today's presentation is a little bit unusual in that it will be a run-through of some data that Plant Services collected just this spring from our readers and other respondents on the issue of industrial workforce. And I'll be the sole presenter today. So if you have any questions that you see about the data that are about to be presented or about other trends that you see that might not be mentioned in the webinar, please go ahead and put that in the question and answer box, and I will take several questions at the end of the webinar. This is our third survey on the state of the workforce. Our first survey was done in 2015, as you can see, which resulted in two different cover stories. There are links to each of those stories under the images of the covers. You can go right to our website, www.plantservices.com. In November 2015, we got 160 responses and 108 completes. It was our first attempt to take the temperature of what people thought about their workplaces and about their job prospects. We followed that up with a survey about a year later and published the results in Plant Services February issue 2017. And what we found in that survey was that there was a large amount of concern over where the next generation of workers was going to come from. It was by far the number one concern of respondents who talked about things such as, was their salary okay? Could they use mobile tech on the job? But no matter whether you were a frontline employee or a senior manager, your number one concern was that you needed more good people now and in the future to help advance your operation. So fast forward about a year and a half later, we conducted our most recent survey in March and April of this year, and we were gratified to see that we had more than 275 respondents who completed the survey, which shows us that your interest in this area is growing as well as ours is. The full results of the survey were published in June. The cover story in the June issue is available at those links below the image of the cover. And we found a couple of interesting things. That number one was that people were still concerned over where the next generation of workers were coming from, but that overall respondents in the survey were a little bit more content with their jobs. We got the feeling that people know their top priority is to recruit newer, better people for the future, but that right now people are willing to stick it out at their current job to see what else they could learn before potentially moving on. We'll start jumping into the data with a couple of slides on demographic background. I wanted to show you the three surveys side by side. Interestingly, the split between what we consider frontline employees and what we consider management stayed pretty much the same from this year to last year. One of the interesting changes is that you'll see a gradual rise in the number of maintenance and reliability professionals who are responding to this survey. In other research we've done, we've noticed that this increase is actually coming from the reliability function more than the maintenance function. Maintenance isn't dropping off, it's just the reliability is growing very quickly. You'll also see two drop-offs from year over year here. Department heads are dropping somewhat. But if you look at the frontline supervisor title, that role either is being diminished at plants or in not being replaced, or people are simply leaving it. We're not sure what's going on. It's a question to ask for the future. But it was a very clear trend to us that frontline supervisors are being either compensated for or replaced by now just frontline managers. Okay, generational and gender backgrounds. If you look at this, you'll see that the Millennials and Gen Ys plus Gen X's have been growing slowly but steadily over the past 3 years, and with also a drop in baby boomer respondents. Although we've got some awesome pre-boomers who are with us, who are still engaged in the field, either as full-timers or consultants, who are sharing their wisdom with the rest of the industry. I want you to keep this data in mind, because this is going to underscore several points that I think you'll see later in the data. The fact that you do have a younger generations on the increase. And the retirement that we've all been hearing about are actually happening from 60% boomer responses even 3 years ago down to 43% now. So no doubt you're already seeing these trends, you're already feeling them. I'm sure you've been in a lot of retirement parties for your colleagues, and you're also wondering, based on the results of our survey, how the heck are we going to capture their knowledge before they end up retiring? So here's the gender breakdown. Less of a steady trend, but I think to me it's a very welcome one, that more women are entering the MRO industrial workforce. From 7% in 2015, we had a dip to 4% last year, but now the response rate is 11.2% women versus about 88% men. So let's jump into what you consider the biggest workforce challenges. I put this slide up. This was from last year's presentation. For the point of comparison, just to observe, did these numbers change year over year? Last year, you said the frontline employees said overwork due to a lack of workers was the top concern, and very, very close second and third was lack of executive direction and also lack of executive follow-through, indicating there were some communication issues that especially frontline employees were citing. So what happened in 2018? Almost 74% said finding skilled workers to fill open positions, versus about 60% said knowledge capture transfer, almost about 50% who said communication, and 45% said worker retention and turnover. I do think that's fascinating, because the frontline employees in the space of 14, 15, 16 months have felt the impact of the lack of skilled colleagues who are going to fill these open positions with them. So much so that the number jumped from about 57 to 73%. Now I'll go to the full slide from this year. You can take a look at the data points for yourself. some of the highlights here is that of less concern were things such as drug use-related hiring challenges, friction between union and non-union employees, friction of any kind, really, between employees of different racial and ethnic religious backgrounds. It was interesting to see the communication is still an important issue for people, but that didn't drop a whole lot. And that, change management, I think we at Planet Services thought that change management would be more of an issue that everyone would mention as a challenge at their workplace. Given that we hear at a lot of events that when it comes to new technologies, new processes, the easy part is to purchase these and develop a business case. The hard part is to get everyone to use them, and that's sort of the definition of change management. But for some reason, that wasn't a concern that was universally shared here by people responding to the survey. Now, I'm going to go to the next slide here, which is the management's perspective of workforce challenges. And guess what? In 2018, management and frontline employees were very, very tightly aligned. The same top 4 challenges were top 4 for each category of employee. What that does tell us is that, plant teams are pretty much united on understanding what the challenges moving forward in the company are. It's not a case where the frontline sees one thing and management sees another. It's the case that there is a sense of shared understanding of what challenges need to be tackled first. I'll go ahead and put the total slide up for management perspectives. So I read a couple of quotes from the cover story in this topic. Christine Lefebvre-Grace, our managing editor, was the one who analyzed the survey data and reached out to industry figures for comment on this. And one comment rung true and interesting for these challenges data from John Lavoie, who is superintendent of the Greater Lawrence Technical School based in Andover, Massachusetts. He says, for every student that we put to work, we probably have 4 openings. And then this next quote was even more surprising to me. Rich Ramey, who's an engineering director at Ramtech in Marion, Ohio, he said, we hear it all the time. I'm one maintenance technician away from having to shut my plant down. And again, this story can be downloaded in the handout section at lower left, as well as the full data set from this year's survey. But I thought those were really telling, which is that we found that people knew about this issue last year and were very concerned. That concern has only ramped up in the past year and a half. So taking a subset of these data, recruitment, retention, and training. The first question I want to review here is, what could your organization be doing differently to recruit and retain talented speakers? Essentially, what do you think are some of the silver bullets that could help solve this problem together? And if you look right in the middle there, hovering at 56% of respondents said better training and career development opportunities. This to us was noteworthy because it is ahead of everything else in this list, ahead of higher starting pay, ahead of better management, better bosses, ahead of better incentives, benefits. Everything else on this list comes in second place to that. Now, better incentives or benefits was at 44%, so it's not too terribly far away from better training. But again, let that sink in. At the moment, people are less concerned about the state of their wages and benefits and more concerned with how can I learn more. And I do think that is telling because we've heard a lot about the changing workforce and about changing technology, moving to a more digital technology era, Industry 4.0. At the events that I've been to, including Reliable Plant, which is run by the Nori Corporation, especially this year, Reliable Plant, half of the sessions at that event were focused on how do you make the digital leap, or how do you use digital technologies and leverage the internet to do your reliability and maintenance job better. The takeaway there is that your teams right now don't want to leave, so don't give them reasons to go. We're returning to that a little later. It's a bit of a catchphrase, but if you look at this, people are looking for reasons to stay and broaden their experience levels. Okay, so the next one was, what do the following does your employer offer in terms of training and career development? And so there's just a rundown of what people are experiencing. They could select all that apply to them. And the most common ones are in-house development programs, reimbursement of college tuition for external classes, as well as sponsorship of participation in other external training programs. So it's a good mix. I do want to note that the fourth one in this list, formal leadership training. We have a leadership management columnist who writes a column monthly for Plant Services, Tom Moriarty, and his company, Elevate MER, offers training services. And one of the things that he has found while on the job with companies, and also through a survey that Tom did with Plant Services, is that there's a gap between when people get promoted the first time on average into a management position and then when they get formal leadership training. And I do think these data back up what Tom found and underscore it, which is that companies need to really think through how they are helping people move into positions of leadership and move out of more frontline positions. Are people getting the leadership skills they need? Are they not getting the skills they need? And someone quoted in the cover story noticed this trend too. Eric Horton, who's program manager of Operation Next, he said, "This is an overwhelmingly common mantra that I hear every single day. I'm meeting with HRs from companies every day, and they all say the same thing. Soft skills just aren't there." You can include leadership training in these kind of soft skills. So if you are in charge of promotions or working through promotions, or if you're thinking yourself of getting promoted, understand there's a real market and need for solid soft skills, and a lot of times those are communicated through training. And yet that was only the fourth on the list of what is offered to employees. Finally, next slide. To be taking advantage of any career development assistance that your employer offers, 65% say yes, which is great. Only 1 in 5 said no. If not, why not? Half of those said time constraints. So that number could be 75% if some of those employees simply have more time to get trained, or more time outside off the job also in their off work lives. Interestingly, on Plant Services, we have seen a strong interest in coverage on topic of planning and scheduling over the past year too. We have a writer, Doc Palmer, an industry expert who writes a column once a month for us, as well as other people who are weighing in on this issue. And we're starting to think that the interest in planning and scheduling is coming in large part from the need to understand how to use your human resources better on the job in order to make time for these kind of projects. How do you find extra full-time equivalents by either helping your employees work a little more efficiently, or taking 5% here, 10% there from people's jobs, and reassigning them to create a sort of a collective full-time equivalent? Again, it's important. This number could be 75% if with a little bit more planning and scheduling time, or perhaps some more efficiency. All right. A couple of workload questions we asked last year. Question: I am confident that my job will exist in 5 years. 75% said yes. This year's question was a little bit different. Do you have concern that the automation of some of your responsibilities will affect your job? This year, 56% said no, and 34% said maybe, and 10% said yes fairly soon. So I think people are starting to understand that as automation technology and robotics technology gets more evolved, that jobs that might have been safer or perceived to be safer in previous surveys are no longer being perceived that way. Next question: I believe my company knows the skills required to compete in the changing business environment. Last year, 65% said yes. This year's question: do I believe my organization will be able to successfully respond to business challenges? Again, 56% said yes, 13% said no, and about 30% said I'm unsure about that. So I'm curious to know if unsure as an option last year would have made a difference in the question, but I do think it's interesting that, again, people have more confidence in this year's survey than in their company than they did last year, where the answer of no to this question drops from 35% down to 13%. Finally, I am often asked to multitask and work on various tasks outside my job description. In 2015, 82% of you said yes, In 2017, that dropped a little to 79%. This year, 87% said yes. I think that's interesting to note that as opposed to previous surveys, this year I think a lot of respondents saw this as either an okay thing or a welcome thing because of the degree to which the attitudes towards multitasking and learning new skills are changing. I think employees understand that learning new skills is one of the ways to ensure continued value of the employee to the company. So let's move to the last section of the data, which is the data on job satisfaction. What's the temperature? Are people happy to be at work right now? Are they not happy? And to us, the key question here was, I'd be happy to remain with my current organization in 2 years. And a whopping majority, almost 80%, said yes. This is different from previous surveys where more will be willing to move for various reasons. Again, just want to note that the attitude here was, that people will easily stay within 2 years. 2 questions designed to tap into some nuances in that answer. Does my organization offer adequate training on the asset management technologies I'm being asked to use in the job? A majority said no. Not a huge majority, but a definite majority said no. So again, companies take note that your workers think there needs to be better training on asset management. Are new condition monitoring and asset management technologies making my job easier? 30% said yes. About 12% said no, and about 40% said maybe. So, it's you got to accept the answer here that the verdict is still out. But for those for whom it's working very, very well. Twice as many said yes than said no. If I leave my organization in the next 2 years, it will likely be because of, then people could choose up to 3. The top vote getters here were an opportunity elsewhere with better pay or benefits, an opportunity elsewhere with new or more attractive job responsibilities, and an opportunity elsewhere with better career advancement potential. And a close fourth was the very last option in the bottom there, which said, all that being said, I hope not to leave, which I thought was interesting. 30% openly said, I really don't want to go anywhere if I don't have to. But again, focus on those top 3 vote getters there, which is two of the 3 focused on more attractive job responsibilities, career advancements. A couple of comments on these data from people in the cover story. Dawn Sprague, who is VP of HR for OSI Soft, observed that for millennials especially, quote, it's not necessarily about the next job. It's what experiences are they getting and what skills are they gathering. Millennials really want to have different opportunities and they want to explore different things. And they don't want to be just stuck on one path for the rest of their lives. For us, I think that's very important to keeping these people engaged, them feeling like they have career development. And I want to add a quote from Cindy Jordan, who is president of the Americas for IFS. This is taken from an interview that Christine had with her at the IFS World Conference this past May, where Cindy said, I don't think millennials would even think of it as a technology. They think of it as just, that's what I do. And this is tying back into condition monitoring technologies, where increasingly, this is not about whether people are comfortable with new technologies. The incoming workers already know the technologies. They'll be comfortable with using higher tech, different tech. They'll think, as Cindy Jordan said, that's just what I do. So I'll wrap up this main presentation with a couple of key takeaways. And while we're going over this slide, again, if you have any questions about this survey, go ahead and type that in the question and answer box. Number 1, this year we thought it's good for companies to keep in mind that they ensure that their employees have opportunities to develop their skills and position themselves for different roles and responsibilities. Again, we just talked about millennials especially respond to this and don't mind lateral movement here and there. That means that it gets them into a job space or track they're interested in. As far as informal skills development goes, things that people can do are hold lunch and learns, that senior workers can foster less skilled workers, and also you may want to consider testing out mobile augmented reality or virtual reality technologies. I just returned from a conference in Boston. It was run by PTC called LiveWorks. This is a company that originally specialized in 3D CAD drawings, but now is branching out into augmented reality and virtual reality training and job instructions. And they demonstrated a headset where the user could not only virtually check off steps as they went along with their finger poking into space. Through their headset, they would see themselves as checking off boxes on the instruction list. But also, there was a way for the wearer of the headset to record what was happening, record video of what was happening in front of them. This, of course, would help document compliance with process issues, but also it's a way for the workers to document what they're doing, what they're learning. So as you see these technologies become available, consider trying out in a professional event which showcases these technologies or getting a demo from any one of several vendors who'd be happy to bring one by. I know Microsoft especially has a very state-of-the-art headset, and they're partnering with a number of companies to develop out training in this area. As far as formal skills development goes, I recommend that you can establish cross-functional collaborative teams that can help address organizational priorities and KPIs. We're seeing a lot of company partnerships with local community colleges, and also even driving deeper into the high school area. We are noting that companies are no longer waiting for the skilled workers to come to them. There are a lot of success stories out there. You can just Google for them, where local companies, anywhere from smaller facilities to multinational facilities, are engaging with local communities, especially community colleges, to help build out course tracks and training that are going to help. They're going to help the companies understand where potential labor is coming from in the future, where the new skilled employees are, and also, frankly, it helps upskill workforce in local areas too. It doesn't just rely on chance, fate, or interest to let new employees come to you. These are organizations which are taking the lead in reaching out to educational facilities already in place locally to help drive greater engagement with the new workforce. So with that, I'll say thank you for listening to the presentation. I don't see a whole lot of questions coming in at this point. We'll be on for about a minute here while I wrap up the webinar. So if you have a question, go ahead and answer it. You can go ahead and ask it. Seeing how there's no questions rolling in, I'll simply move to close out then. I'd like to thank you all for joining me today in this webinar. And also I'd like to thank our on-demand viewers who are watching this room on demand. I also like to thank our sponsor, AVO Training Institute, for helping to make this webinar possible. This webinar has been recorded and will be available shortly for on-demand viewing. You're also encouraged to visit plantservices.com to gain access to even more tools and resources aimed at helping you achieve success. A full set of speaker slides will be available to download for attendees. And also, right now, you can download the PDF of the cover story based on this survey, as well as a full copy of the full data set. That full data set will only be available for live attendees today. So I'd say you have about maybe 60 more seconds to move your cursor down there in the handout section and download the copy of the full data set. The cover story will be available for on-demand viewers as well, but that raw data set for your own perusal is available only to those who are with me today. Did you like this presentation? Let me know your thoughts by answering a brief survey that will appear on your screen shortly. Your candid answers are not only appreciated, they help us craft better in future events. Once again, thank you for your attendance. Thanks to AVO Training Institute for being our sponsor, and have a great rest of the day.